24 hours ago, Pakistan announced it had credible intelligence India would launch a military strike within the next 24 to 46 hours. For today's Spotlight, we ask, are India and Pakistan headed for war? This impending warning by Pakistan's Information Minister Ataullah Tarar followed India's accusations that Islamabad supported Saturday's deadly Pahalgam attack in Kashmir. It was the deadliest civilian attack in decades. 25 tourists and one local were brutally gunned down. At first, a group called the Resistance Front claimed responsibility for the attack. Later, they revoked their claim. Islamabad has rejected any link and held up the Indian government's unevidenced claims as proof they are seeking false pretext to launch airstrikes. Now, bullets have flown, visas have been revoked, families separated, and also the life-saving supply of tens of billions of cubic meters of water has been threatened. Both sides are outwardly positioning their forces for war. But it is not the first flare-up in the fraught modern history between the neighbouring nuclear nations. Ever since India and Pakistan were partitioned in 1947, the mountainous Kashmir region has been disputed, and 3 major wars have been fought there, though the last one was over 50 years ago. But armed skirmishes are not infrequent. They even led to airstrikes in 2019, when all-out war was narrowly avoided with the help of US and Arab mediation. There is some historic validation to India's accusations that Pakistan has previously supported insurgents in the region, but there is also plenty of cause for homegrown Kashmiri resistance and radicalization without any need for Pakistani support. Crucial wider context here is the inflammatory far-right politics of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who uses anti-Pakistan and Islamophobic sentiment as an electoral rallying cry, and who, in 2019, revoked Kashmir's semi-autonomous status, bringing the region under state control, jailing Kashmiri leaders, and putting its people under curfew. So, where does that leave us? Joining us from within Kashmir is an Indian Kashmiri journalist, analyst, and peace activist. Welcome to Middle East Eye Live, Zafar Chowdhury.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Can you give us any updates about how tense the situation feels in Kashmir right now, or how real the threat of war is?
So it's very complex to understand, while as it's almost 10 days after the terrorist attack at the hill resort in Kashmir. So the Kashmir Valley is bouncing back to normalcy. The tourists are coming back in thousands once again, and they want to send this message to terrorists that we don't want to get defeated and we want to visit Kashmir again. But at the same time, there is tension between India and Pakistan. So people are holding breath, and there are speculations that it's not going to die down as such. So there is going to be some kind of retaliation. So what retaliation? At what time? So no one knows about that. So there is a situation of tension. There is a situation of speculation that's going on at the moment.
And it's not just speculation about what is coming, but speculation about what happened. The immediate root of this tension is, of course, the vicious attack in Pahalgam on Saturday. We've seen competing claims about who's responsible. India's blamed Pakistan's government directly. Pakistan has firmly denied this, but not just them. Now the militant group that originally claimed responsibility has taken back on its admission. So there's a lot of unanswered questions here. Is there any consensus within Kashmir about what actually happened?
So the history of recent conflict in Kashmir has been going on for around 35 years. So I'm afraid there are no evidences from the past for different parties to come across a consensus after every major incident. So Indian government is very firm in its belief, in its opinion, and on the basis of some preliminary investigation that Pakistani state is involved, terrorist organizations which are operating from the soil of Pakistan which are involved. And Pakistan, as you have already said, has vehemently denied its involvement in any manner. So that's where we are. So it's been 10 days. So there are no success as we speak in hunting down the terrorists so far. So Home Minister of India spoke this evening, and he said that we are making all-out efforts to hunt down the terrorists. So unless a terrorist is captured or some communication channels are exposed, it's difficult to find out who exactly pulled the trigger. But yes, Indian agencies strongly believe that Pakistan is behind the attack.
Now, today we are asking whether all-out war is likely. And on that, you wrote something really stark on X. You wrote, "Never in my life have I seen or heard of any people in history being so desperate for a war." I wondered, who do you see as having this appetite for war, and why?
So India has suffered in Kashmir a number of terrorist attacks. So in the recent, like there is a strong political leadership at the central government in India, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And Modi's promise was that once he becomes Prime Minister, he will end terrorism for once and all. That was in 2014. Now it's been 15 years, it's been 11 years. And in these 11 years, a number of high profile incidents of terrorism have happened. So he has conducted two surgical strikes, which means that he has crossed the line of control or crossed the border to set a new deterrence to go inside Pakistan and attack the alleged terror bases there. And then incidents of terrorism have happened again. After this incident, in which 26 tourists lost their lives, so a vast majority across India is asking for a decisive attack on Pakistan. So people are asking, people are paying for blood, people are asking for attack. If you look at the Pakistani side, they say bring it on. So that's a matter of national pride, and that's how things have been between the two countries. So I see that India and Pakistan have been one at one point, and now they are divided by border. And the overwhelming majority of people on both sides is asking for war to happen sometime soon.
But what about the people in Kashmir who would have to deal with the brunt of that war?
Many Absolutely.
People there, yeah.
So
what are they saying?
I think that's a very, very important question. Someone needs to go to Kashmir, come to us and ask us that what is it that we want. So there is a broader consensus across Kashmir Valley, because Kashmir Valley is also divided across different social spectrums. There are Hindu people, there are Muslim people, there are people divided across political ideologies. So they want terrorism to end. They want the terrorist act that took place on 22nd of April to be avenged. But no one in Jammu and Kashmir wants war, because we have seen very closely that what does it mean. And once you initiate war, it's not in anyone's hand to bring that to an end. So people are very, very cautious in Kashmir.
But I'm wondering then, if there's nothing to gain for the people of Kashmir, who is there something to gain for? In Kashmir, it's pretty clear that, India has intentions for administrating Kashmir, that they have actively imposed their administration. By contrast, the Pakistani government says that it's only interested in defending the autonomy and the sovereignty of Kashmiris. Starting with the Pakistani government, how sincere does this feel? Do you buy it?
How sincere? Sorry, I didn't get this question.
I was asking about the Pakistani government's position formally on Kashmir, that their only interests in the region are in defending the autonomy and the sovereignty of Kashmiris against Indian administration. Does that pledge feel sincere?
So this political conflict has been going on for a while. And there has been a status quo, and that was a point of discomfort for almost everyone for more than 7 decades. In 2019, when India brought down the last semblance of autonomy that Kashmir had, and it downgraded it to a union territory that is directly administered by the center, so that has changed the dynamics of the situation. So there is some kind of discussion that people want to reopen in the territory which is held by Pakistan, that is divided into two parts. So that status quo that has persisted before 2019 is being aggressively challenged. People want the situation to change. People want some open conversations to happen. People want some honest discussions to take place. So sincerity in terms of the political positions which have been held by authorities, particularly Pakistani authorities since 1947 onwards, is now critically challenged. People want that situation to change.
I suppose there's also the cynical possibility, or the cynical interpretation, that Pakistan's current government often seems to have quite a fragile hold on power. They came in on the back of inconclusive elections. They've faced massive protests over the imprisonment of former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Is there a chance that they could see, warmongering rhetoric as an opportunity to improve their popularity at home?
So, in a certain way, that this warmongering suits both sides, in a certain way that, a strong leadership on the Indian side, which has always said that there can't be any incident of terrorism under our watch. So they are under intense public pressure to do something. On the Pakistani side, the problem is far more serious. There are problem of their economy. There are problem of their social structures, and the military, which has always been very powerful there, has in the recent months or years have been very seriously challenged. Its authority has been very seriously challenged. So if there is a conflict with India, escalation in conflict with India, that is a potential factor for the people to rally behind the military and to for the military and the current government to emerge very strongly. So, which is why I think Pakistan also wants that something should happen so that they are able to retaliate and they are able to firm their hold on the power they are holding there.
And something that you've indicated and that we've heard a lot of is that Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister's rhetoric about actions in Kashmir, it really revolves around the language of terrorism, of clamping down on terrorism. But some of his policies sort of have been seen as much more far-reaching. It's not just the revoking of constitutional rights, but the laws being introduced are described as some as sort of engineering a demographic shift in the Muslim majority region. Do Modi's policies in Kashmir feel like the actions of a man who's just trying to, introduce peace against terror?
So that's a very strong political argument in Kashmir. The Kashmiri people have always been very sensitive about anyone from anywhere else in the country from within India coming and settling in Kashmir. So since this constitutional relationship was changed, so in a way that system was open for people from other parts of India to come and settle down in Kashmir, but then there are certain regulations that those who have stayed here for more than 15 years. So the anxieties as being made out. For example, when this terrorist incident happened on 22nd of April, so a statement was issued by the terrorist organization that since there is a demographic change going on in Kashmir, which is why we did this attack. Even as later on they have withdrawn that statement. But at the people's level in Kashmir, the anxieties are not as much that someone would want a violent incident to happen to give this message to Narendra Modi that we don't accept the change in demography. So it's not something really very, very visible, though there are laws, there are regulations, but it's not something that concerns people on an everyday basis.
Okay. And finally, if, war unfortunately was to break out in Kashmir, it wouldn't be the first time. 3 previous wars have failed to resolve this dispute, but they have seen millions displaced and tens of thousands killed. If war was to break out, is it a war that anyone could win?
So I don't think that this is, if there is a war between India and Pakistan, that is going to be won by any party. So there have been wars mainly around Kashmir in 1947, in 1965, in 71, that was a different thing. That was about Bangladesh, but Kashmir was at its center. And there's a limited war in 1999 in the Kargil Heights. None of these events of war have changed the status of Kashmir between India and Pakistan. So I think eventually dialogue, cooperation, addressing the core issues with sincerity, I think that's what is going to resolve Kashmir issue. That's going to, bring peace in the region. So I don't think any saner voice, any saner mind anywhere in India or Pakistan thinks that, war is going to bring a solution. So I understand that, people are deeply emotional at the moment, that there were some tourists who were there at the hill station to enjoy for merrymaking, and they were killed there. They were asked about their religion. So people are deeply, deeply angry. So once this cool down, people will realize that, and I think people have already started talking about this, that war is not going to be something to resolve anything.
Zafar Chowdhury, thank you so much for joining us.